It was in the daytime, and I was at a grocery store, and I was trying to buy something, and I wasn't sure what I was getting. And this old lady came behind me, and I guess I was in her way. And she's like, "Remember when men used to work in the day?"
Welcome to Bad Parents, a podcast about three bad parents who are trying to raise good kids. She's Shauna.
Hello.
He's Ryan.
What's up?
And I'm Johnny. A Tell It Like It Is podcast for parents to laugh, cry, and to make you feel better about your parenting.
All right, on the podcast today, we tackle a bunch of different trends that you might be using as a parent, but maybe ain't going so well, not doing your kids any favor. And we talk a little May 2-4 Victoria Day. And finally, for the first time in all the podcast, I say a swear.
Welcome to the Bad Parents podcast. My name is Johnny Garbage, Shauna Whalen, Ryan Parker. Thank you so much for subscribing to the podcast and liking the podcast. If you haven't yet, or you want to tell some friends, you're more than welcome to. You guys all right?
I'm doing well.
Hanging in there, best we can.
Yeah, I think I've been having some interesting parenting struggles because I'm now that my kids are getting older, I'm worried about what kind of adults I'm creating. You have a 15-year-old. I have a 16-year-old, Ryan. And I'm feeling like this article really rings true. It came up on my feed. It says, here's some modern parenting trends that means you're setting your kids up for disappointment.
Okay, let's go through it. I love this.
Okay, so this one has to do with what we're both doing is sports. People today are putting too much pressure on kids to play sports. Now, both of us have kids in rep sports, mine in baseball, yours in hockey. How do you feel about someone saying that?
Okay, so I'm tough on this one because I kind of agree and disagree in that I do find that kids are so structured now.
Yeah.
Rather than like a lot of our childhood was you knew where your friends were, where their bicycles were, right? And so, for example, my kid that plays hockey and a lot of hockey, he's in the rink 12 months a year. He also does ball hockey. And what I like about that is, yes, it's structured. It's on Sundays, but it's loose. He's playing against his buddies that are on the same hockey team.
Fun.
For fun. If you lose, it doesn't really matter. But do I think these kids have a lot of pressure on them, especially if they play high level? Yes, I agree with that part. Where I disagree is there's so much good things that come from sports aside from playing the sport. You know what it's like. Teammates, having to be there, accountability, a dressing room, a locker room. A coach says something and you react because oftentimes teachers don't have power anymore.
Yeah.
A coach still does. Coach takes away your ice time. Coach takes away your batting, whatever it is. Kids don't get that. And the last thing I'll say about it is if you get cut from a team, it hurts. It sucks. There's nothing worse than telling your kid they didn't make a team. But it's setting them up for the real world where you don't always get what you want.
Don't you feel, guys, that there's some things that are good about the world is softer. They're definitely treated with softer hands than we were. And then that generation before us was even harder. But I feel like sports is the last place where they are still getting those hard life lessons, like what you just said, getting cut from a team, getting benched. You know, if you're late for practice, you don't play. So I kind of think that's good that we're giving them that because, I mean, even as a parent, I'm not that hard on them.
Right. No, it's easier for the coach to be.
On somebody on the outside who's looking into this whole sort of sports teamwork sort of things, I can only imagine that if somebody was at school and was put into the group project and they didn't want to be in that, they said to the teacher, I don't want to be part of this group. This person is blah, 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 blah. They would probably be moved and accommodated, right? Instead of being forced to sort of like having to work through a tough situation where if you're on a line in hockey, or you're on a team in baseball, like a pitcher, catcher, and you don't get along with that person, you're screwed. Like you have to find a way to make it work. And almost seems like the coach as a title, the coach, is sort of like maybe like the last sort of kid non-friendly sort of situation that your kid can be in, where they like what the coach says goes.
Oh, totally.
And if you don't want to be part of it, you don't have to be part of it. And it's a real sort of hard line that I don't think is out there anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
In situations. So I just being a bit old school, if you will, I kind of like it.
Yeah, I think the only downside of it potentially is that, I'll give you a real life example. So my son played rep hockey and rep soccer, and they're both kind of 12 months a year now.
Yeah.
And so the soccer coach was very understanding. He's like, just give me come this time of year, May, I need your son. But he still has hockey camps and practices and stuff like that. And so he had to quit one. That's the one tough thing, that if your kid plays high level sports, rep sports, AAA hockey and rep soccer, rep baseball, football, you almost have to pick one when you get to a certain age.
I know.
And that's the unfortunate part.
It is, because you hear some of these big time athletes like Patrick Mahomes played baseball and football up till he was older.
Yeah.
And so now it feels like the decisions are being made pretty young.
Right. Like you're 12, you should be able to play 2 sports.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, just the calendar, you can't.
Yeah.
So that's the only downside.
Yeah.
What else you got on there? There's one I saw here on your list about breaking the bank for your kid's birthday party, spending too much on expensive. It's crazy, right? And I will say, the Parkers, we have never gone overboard with their birthday parties. Like, have a couple buddies over or whatever, because it adds up. And then that's all they expect and want.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to nip that in the bud pretty quick, because last year in November, Livy and Jack, we decided, like, the title of the podcast is Bad Parents. We didn't want to have 2 birthday parties, okay? Like, they're both born 2 days apart, different years, but 2 days apart in November. We didn't want to have 2 birthday parties. I don't want to dedicate that much time to birthday parties. We decided to join them and have that Chuck E. Cheese. And each kid got 10 friends. And at the time, I'm like, that sounds like, just a normal amount of people. But then, like, the parents are there because they're so young.
Right.
And, like, it was just absolute chaos. Fun, great time, great, never doing it again. To the point that we're like 2 friends each, like at the house, whatever. It was insanely expensive.
Yeah.
And not that they don't do a good job at Chuck E. Cheese or whatever. They do a great job. We found it to be very expensive. We had a massive group. It was just so overwhelming. And I'm like, I don't think they're going to expect that again, because they may not even remember it, because Jack would turn 3.
Yeah.
But for us, it doesn't make any more sense. There's way better ways to celebrate birthdays than just this mass rave we had at Chuck E. Cheese.
It's really hard, and it's hard to pull back, because we got in the habit of every year bigger, every year bigger, every year bigger. And there's some guilt with our kids' birthdays because they're during the Christmas holidays. So you don't want them to feel gypped, right? Because they're not at school. And so we just found ourselves getting carried away. And now we've managed to, after a few years of scaling it back slowly, but every once in a while they'll remind us of an old time party.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, what happened?
Oh, I know. I mean, we did laser tag one year. I think we had to renew our mortgage. Like, we just couldn't. It was so expensive. And I'll say this, agree or disagree, I think you'll agree, Shauna. 9 times out of 10, I guess the parent, I don't want to do that.
I know.
Like, I would, and your kids are little, but I loved when they got to the age where it was like a house party that you can just drop them off and say to the parent, here's my number. If anything acts up, anyone acts up. But otherwise, I'm gone. Because like, it's a Saturday and you're like, now I'm spending 3 hours in a Chuck E. Cheese with a bunch of 4-year-olds.
Yeah. Like, pin the tail on the donkey was a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like balloons blown up by your grandmother who like came over to like help out. Like the Darth Vader cake that like you kind of made by yourself. Like there was no Pinterest and it was freaking amazing.
Is that what it is? Is it the Pinterest effect?
Fun.
It's social media, right?
100%. It's the keeping up with the Joneses.
How many, do you know how many, like, unbelievable, and if you've done this, like, good for you. That, like, good for you. I don't have the time, and I don't even know, like, these balloon arches
and numbers and stuff
that have come down from heaven. Like these amazing time suckers of balloon arches for Sam, who's like 6. Like, cool, if that's what you want to do. And it almost looks like a Kim Kardashian white party, and you're just like, this is whoa. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But good for you if that's what you want to do.
But but again, as this said, are you setting them up to be spoiled brats so that when they're older and they have a partner or they have a family of their own, they're going to expect the big balloon archway.
Yeah, and you just got to realize, like, you got to put an end to it. Like, maybe it's one big gift and one friend coming over for a sleepover, or you have the big party, but that's it. You ain't getting a PS4 as well.
Yep.
Your kids are spoiled.
So we're talking about like parenting trends that are, maybe we have to like break the cycle of whatever. And I thought it was a good conversation. Let's continue with it. What else do you have on your list, Shauna?
Okay, so this is the extracurricular. We did talk about sports, but it's not just about sports. It's about your kid's entire identity revolving around their extracurricular. So we're talking piano, we're talking dance, we're talking ballet, gymnastics, like the list, science, whatever it is, you've got your kids so scheduled that are you creating your kid's identity based on these activities that they do? And how is that what is that going to create in the future? What kind of adults or young adults is that going to make?
Yeah, you want to be kind of diverse as an adult, and you definitely want to as a child, right?
Yeah, and are you doing it so that you can brag to your friends at brunch about what your kids are into? Because sometimes I worry about it. Are we doing it for them, or is it so that you can say your kids are in all these things?
Preach. And I find that, we're not talking about necessarily sports here, but I do find you wonder, sometimes you meet a dad and you're like, were you a failed whatever? And now you're trying to make
Totally.
junior become what you would never were but wanted to be.
Yeah.
And just let them live their life and let them do their thing. I totally agree. I think it's great to be good at a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, I just wonder, because our kids are different ages and my kids are a lot younger. The reasoning for what Olivia does, who's 5, is she does skating lessons because her school had a skate day and she didn't know how to skate, so she couldn't go on the ice with her friends. So this is more like, just have this skill so you can just participate. Not to be like, the next figure skating sensation or whatever. Just you have the skill to go out and have fun with your friends. She goes to Girl Guides, Sparks, and out of all the things that she does, I feel like she gains the most out of that, just as a human.
Yeah.
Right? Just human skills of fun and just being a part of a group. And it just does swimming because I want you not to drown.
Same thing.
swimming's
That's
great.
a great skill.
I don't think there's nothing there to brag about.
Yeah.
It's not like she's in some sort of fancy dancy dance troupe that does competitions, or she's in a glee. Like, skills is
I
humans
think those
need.
are good basic ones.
Yeah, for sure.
But I for sure, you can't tell me that you haven't been in a rink or at a diamond where like the dad's just like, or the mom's just,
oh my God.
like, sit down.
Oh, man.
Like, I'm sorry that you got cut from like AA in '84, but like,
I know. But then you see these dads, like, and I'll say dads in my experience, and not the ones I know. They're all pretty normal, actually. They all are. But, the ones where you're like, your whole goal is trying to get your kid to the next. Like, you're talking to every coach, every single person you're supposed to
You
know.
see a lot of that. Unfortunately, that's there.
Like, do you know there's a website? I was grossed out by it, where I clicked on it once, I read it, and then I stopped. And it was like just a place where you can talk about minor hockey.
Yeah.
So my son's in something called the OMHAs, and there's the GTHL, and it's parents slamming other coaches, slamming teams, slamming cities, slamming the kids. So they would be like, they would put on like, my son, they would put your kid's initial, number 29 RP tournament this weekend, only had 3 points. And you're like, you're a grown man and you're taking shots at 12-year-old hockey players. Like, what's wrong with your life? So there are people that most people are cool and they just want to see their kid play at the best they can. But there are the odd.
But it's a hard line, because I remember with my youngest, he's very cute. We put his picture in one of those contests, modeling contests. And it's funny, you start small, and next thing you know, he was taking an acting class in Toronto, and we lived out near Hamilton. So we were doing a lot of drive. Then he got an agent because he did well at this.
Right.
And then you're going for commercials. I can see how it creeps up, because I wished I'd had done that stuff as a kid. I always loved performing. I loved being on stage. So there is a bit of that when your kid starts to achieve these little things that you would have liked to have done.
Right.
So I can understand how it starts small, and next thing you know, you're driving into Toronto for 3 hours away just to do an audition.
There's another one on this list, Sean. I'd like to ask you, because it just mentions moms. So I'd just like to know if this ever happened to you. And I can see it happening with maybe your mom or mother-in-law or a family member rather than a stranger. But it is shaming other moms and how they choose to feed their kids. Have you ever, we joke all the time with you about it, because, you joke about loving chicken nuggets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Your kids. But has anyone actually legit shamed you, and have you made you feel bad?
There's a relative in the family. I won't say.
Exactly. I was going to say family too.
Right.
No friends have, because I think they're all in it together, but family, yes.
Yeah.
And she has quite a social media presence of being very mom-like, and half of what we talk about in our job on the radio being funny is not an exaggeration, but
it is.
Yeah, there are times when my kid will eat healthy, but it's not as funny as telling, but in general. And she actually took a moment at a family wedding to talk to my husband about my parenting and the food and how I joke on the air and how I.
Oh no!
And it's been really. I just recently found this out, and it's been a little bit tricky to come to terms with that, because it really bothered me that someone had the audacity to bring it up as if I was being a seriously bad parent.
Right.
I mean, I think we can all say tongue in cheek, we're all making mistakes. And I'm sure she's made mistakes too. But yeah, that happened pretty recent. And I can't understand why anyone would shame anybody.
And mine's coming like the backhanded compliment sort of way, where I even feel worse, because now I'm like you've screwed with my head, and I have to kind of read into what you meant by, were you joking? Were you not joking? You've obviously mentioned it, so it's obvious. And, and I was really sort of, I don't get why you can see that I'm trying my best, right? Just my kids won't eat broccoli soup.
Exactly.
So you can tell them that, like, oh, grandma make what? And I'm not saying it's my grandma. I'm not saying it's anybody's mom, but I'm just like, just because your broccoli soup appeals, doesn't mean they just don't eat it.
I know.
So I don't need you to make me feel like crap because they won't have broccoli soup. Instead, they want a pogo. Like, it is what it is. You fight your battles when you can.
Yeah.
And at the dinner table is not the time for me.
I know.
Right.
I've been there.
That's just me.
Yep.
And if you're keeping it just on food, things are different. Like I grew up with a stay-at-home mother, right? And my mom was from England and she cooked, like our meals were just cooked. It was like always like a hot, good meal. Would I love for my kids to eat that way? Of course. Yeah. The real world, two working parents, it just doesn't happen. And so to think though of somebody, I've never experienced it. I can't imagine trying to shame a parent into that.
But you had a shaming moment that I remember that you told on the air a while ago. That you went to the park in the middle of the day as a father with a whole bunch of other moms around. And didn't they like all kind of like...
Yeah, I was kind of questioning like, why aren't you working kind of vibe?
Yeah.
And, it's kind of weird. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, like, you're all around the same age. Like, your husbands all work 9 to 5. Like, don't you understand that it's like... And first of all, if I was a stay-at-home father, I have every right to be.
Absolutely.
Were you not like rocking a stroller?
Yeah.
Like it's not like you just showed up at the park solo.
I know. It's like, what am I creeping around the mothers? Hello, mother, like another? Come on. The last thing I will say, though, where I was shamed, where it made me laugh, and I told this story, but I don't think I ever told it on the podcast, is it was in the daytime, and I was at a grocery store, and I was trying to buy something, and I wasn't sure what I was getting, and this old lady came behind me, and I guess I was in her way, and she's like, remember when men used to work in the day?
Oh, Canada.
Oh, Victoria, you mean?
I do mean it, but in Canada, we celebrate Victoria Day.
That's right, we do.
Right? So if you're in another part of the world, sorry about your luck for not
Should have been
Victoria Day.
Commonwealth.
Unless you're listening in a Commonwealth country where maybe you have today off as well. But anywho, the way that we here in Canada like to celebrate Victoria Day, or as we call it, May 2-4.
May 2-4, bud.
Or in Thunder Bay, May Long.
The May Long.
The old May Long.
May Long.
Is that we like to light off Larry's, as Ryan likes to say, which is a name of a firework. Some other fun names are Fight Fire with Fire. Mm-hmm. Right, Shauna, will you be lighting off any Waking Up the Gators?
Yes.
I don't know what any of this stuff is.
These are interesting, funny firework names.
Okay.
Red, White, and Boom, or what?
Ladies' Night Out.
Yes, girls.
What's
Light those
that?
up.
They're just names. There's zero descriptions.
Yeah.
So it could be like whatever you want your head to go to. Echo in the Ear, Bad Reputation, Bare Knuckle Fighting.
Wow.
I'm just saying, like, these are maybe you're gonna light these off. I don't know. They sound very firework trailer-ish, with nondescript.
I love that there's no description.
Do you guys find that, like, growing up, let's say, like, we were kids, like, in the 80s, let's say, it was a lot of just backyard barbecue, backyard fireworks with, like, your uncle probably
Real
drinking too
simple.
much,
Yes.
lighting them up, probably, like, no hose, no sand, no protection, nothing. Just alcohol and jean shorts.
Yeah.
And just lighting them off, and the kids stand back. And now I find it's a lot more like you go to a park and the firefighters do it, or,
Of course.
and that kind of stuff. I kind of like to keep it old school, maybe get a couple neighbors together and just light them off.
Yeah.
My father broke the cycle. Rick the Wick is what we like to call him. He is a fireworks aficionado. He also worked for health and safety for a company for many years. So
really? That was his gig?
Yeah. So when we did it right. He had the sand and the water, and you had to like put the firework in a bucket with sand 3 inches deep. Like, he did it right. As much as he loves fireworks, he does it extremely safely. So we were lucky that way, and we always had tons of kids around, and we did it at the park, and nobody like. It was expected. Like, people like back when I was growing up, and I think when you were growing up, people didn't light them off all weekend.
I agree.
It was that one night,
Yes.
the community came together at the baseball diamond, and everybody threw in $5, and we sat around for 20 minutes and watched parents drunkenly light off fireworks. And it was great, and it was amazing. And nobody was like, on a Thursday night leading into it, lighting off and upsetting neighbors and putting a real damper on it. But
when did that change? When did it become a whole weekend thing? And when did people really start hating fireworks, like my pets and the babies? And like, I understand that there's some dogs that have a lot of fear on it, but it just seems like there's been a shift. And now there's this huge group of people that really hate all fireworks.
Yeah.
Want them banned.
And listen, I was always kind of like rolled my eyes at those people, because that's when just remembering it was like 3 times a year. So what's the big deal? But you're right. Like, this coming weekend is Victoria Day weekend, and you'll start hearing them on Friday night. You'll hear them on Saturday night. You'll hear them on Sunday night, and you'll hear them on Monday night. And it's like, that's why I think it depends on the city you live in.
Yeah.
That's why there's only certain days you are allowed to light off fireworks, and it's like 3 or 4. Like, one of them, we were talking about this earlier on the radio show, was like New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, which I don't think people do.
I know.
See, to me, it should be Canada Day and May 2-4, and that's it. But they've added like Diwali and like Lunar. There's other other holidays that they've added.
Oh,
that
yeah.
you're allowed to light fireworks.
We had a brand new school built in our neighborhood who does Labor Day. Labor Day fireworks
that's
gets
dumb.
everyone so upset because kids are hard enough to get them to go back to school. They do it Labor Day night.
That's so silly.
They have a whole Facebook page. It's a big deal. This is going to be year 3 of them doing it, and it's a hoopla.
Do you ever go outside on the Sunday night and you can hear the fireworks going off? It's dusk. You know, like that one person in your neighborhood. And I know, Sean, you live in the country. You don't have a lot of neighbors. Like that one where you're just like, wow, these fireworks like done by a civilian are so well done. Like,
Yes.
do you have an inn? Like, are you part of the firework industry? I'm like, where are you getting these from? It's like the old Benson and Hedges Symphony of Fire from your backyard. Good for you.
I think people pump a lot of money into it. I think for people that love fireworks like your dad, they don't care about the spending because we've done it with neighbors where we've all put in like $100 and you're like, for like, say there's $400. So you're like, I thought we'd have more.
I
Like,
know.
It's not cheap.
I know. So you calculate that neighbor, how much they've spent on that display.
It's very good.
Yeah.
They should have a collection going around, like, you know, like Halloween displays where they put the little bucket out front.
Yeah.
And do that for your fireworks display and see how much money you can make to recoup some of the costs.
It was funny. I was looking for stuff from fireworks from the 80s and I stumbled on this news from like the CBC or something. And it was these kids were all going through the fireworks and it was just like, hey, you can touch them, but you just can't pay for them. Like how times have changed.
Oh my
Like it was like, I'll let you look at them and you can play with them and stuff like that, but you can't actually purchase them unless the old man is here. And they're just walking around looking at the different fireworks.
Holding on to them.
They're all holding on to them, doing their whole thing, probably stealing them. But it's amazing how you like, you know, safety for your kids. And then for some reason, I'm 824. You're half in the bag. And you're like, hey, kid, take this flaming object and spell your name.
I know.
You know, with the sparklers. Like, it's like nothing really. I mean, I guess they could put it in their eye, but you know what I mean? Like,
I know.
It's crazy how we just give them to them.
I know.
By the way, hilarious. Maybe I can say it because it's a podcast. This is years ago I saw it. You know how you can like spell, like you can see when you have a sparkler, you spell your name. You can see it for a second.
Yeah.
So, and if you take pictures like slow-mo photography, whatever, you can,
Sure.
you know,
Oh,
people
that's
have like
a good idea.
People have done like proposals like that or whatever. And so it was like, there's like 3 kids and their mom, and they said, hey mom, let's all get together and we'll all have a letter and we'll spell the word love.
Yeah.
So like the son was the L, the mom was the O, the daughter was the V, and the other son was the E. And so they told her they were spelling love. And then when they showed her the picture, they spelled cock. So she's got, like a big mother smile, like they do the yellow.
That's amazing.
That's funny.
Isn't that the best?
Yeah.
So if you take anything from this podcast, do that with your
Do
mother.
it this weekend.
And if you want to add anything to the podcast, you're more than welcome to. Send us an email at badparents@curiouscast.ca, and we will, answer the questions. And we like to take all of your suggestions and put them into a mailbag show that we like to do every couple times a year. So badparents@curiouscast.ca. So a very happy long weekend to you two.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks.
And I can't wait to get my 2 children, 5 and 3, to get some sparklers. I'm going to spill out tits.